Hello, welcome to Matters of DeCorum. I'm Scott Corum. This is what matters to me. Got an idea for a game, and I would like to go through it a little bit. It's tricky coming up with new game ideas. Not so much the mechanics and everything. It's the scheduling. I'm running the 5th edition D&D for the Warriors Wednesday right now. The campaign where they're all paladins. And they've nuked Ilsensine. And that's going to go for a while. And while I do have the layer action stuff that's going on, usually on the weekends, the game in my head, probably better for the Warriors. At some point, I'd like to, run it for different groups, but I think this is, it's the group that is kind of geared towards in my head. Could be wrong. I've been running a lot of fantasy, an awful lot of fantasy, the Dungeons and Dragons. And even when I've tried to branch that a little bit, it ends up coming back down to swords and magic, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I enjoy running fantasy. It's not my first genre. Not my first TTRPG genre. I actually really prefer science fiction. That was first love in TTRPG and tabletop, and I think that's gonna be my favorite for the rest of my life. I got a space game in my head, and in order to kind of go through what this game is, what I'm going to have to do to make it work, you'd have to be familiar with a movie called Down Periscope. If you have not seen the movie Down Periscope, I highly recommend it. I'm going to summarize the necessary salient elements of it, but no spoilers because it's a really good movie. Kelsey Grammer. It's a 90s, 2000s movie where Kelsey Grammer plays a Navy captain who she's trained, highly trained in tactics, and he's got a natural tactical brilliance, and he's hoping to command a nuclear submarine, and he's also got some behavioral issues, so that's not the kind of command they're likely to give him, but they work a deal with him. For war games, they give him an old and antiquated diesel submarine with a crew of misfits and folks who don't fit in, the wacky trope, and they're going to sick the whole Navy on him. And he's got to escape a confined area of the ocean while a number of other captains, an admiral or two, who are hostile to him because of his behavioral issues, attempt to constrain the sub and mock destroy it in the war game. Great movie, really funny. I highly recommend it. And when I think of that, there's a science fiction book, a whole series, but the book that starts the series, Gordon R. Dixon's Tactics of Mistake, where that focuses on a character who's a brilliant tactician who, because behavioral problems, doesn't get far in the military, but has to demonstrate that his capacity to capitalize on minute errors on the opposite side compounds to victory. Tactics of Mistake. It's a really, really good book and kind of got me involved in thinking things like this. So the space game in my head goes something like this. There is a spatial government power. It doesn't have to be. I could go with an old Terran empire and go with humanity over Allalis, or I could go to the stuff I've already got established in Victory, I would say the Trojan Empire. I kind of like this to be that there to have some, maybe it's an alternate spatial state with a darker edge to it. And have the player characters be from the Trojan Empire and have the spatial state they're dealing with. Player characters behind enemy lines. They're open hostility, space war, because you got to have a good space war going on. There's open hostilities, and player characters are trapped behind enemy lines, and they're a rookie crew of a ship that got wrecked, and they find there's a derelict. Their ship is good to keep them alive and move a little bit, but if they get into any kind of conflict in it, they're dead, and it's not going to last much longer. Red lights blinking all over the place, and they come across a derelict ship. It is old. It is not super well equipped. It doesn't have an awful lot of stuff functioning on it, but it can keep them alive. It can move. It's got some guns. And it's not full of red blinking lights like the ship that they're on is. So they take on this new ship, which I might go back to my old Traveler days. I've talked about my favorite Traveler adventure, which isn't actually an adventure, and I might give them something akin to the Anik Nova, just a sturdy, decent, older ship without all the amenities, without the super high tech stuff. It's got just what would have worked, say, 500 years ago, in a spatial campaign that's been going on for quite some time. And so they get that ship and maybe an ancient AI that kind of knows, that doesn't know what's going on in the universe as a whole. It's just been shut down for a while and might have a couple of ancient secrets in it. And they've got to get back to their empire. They've got some piece of intelligence that can't be transmitted on open lines, and they've got to get this back, or maybe something physical, some artifact has to get back to the Trojan Empire, and they've got to fly back through enemy lines in a ship that is under-equipped, under-gunned, under-engined, and has to be coddled a little bit engineering-wise so that it continues to function. This is, and it might not be it's not really a campaign-length thing. You could drag that out a certain amount, but to have any kind of proper story arc, they get back home, or they don't, or blaze of glory. And it's where I know what the end goal is, and I don't actually count on the folks getting there, but yeah, I'm not going to work towards getting them home. They're going to work towards getting them home. I'm going to be running the enemies. And I like the feel of that. I like the crunchiness of it, having to dig into the technology and dig into the engineering. I like the tactics of it. They got to work out how they're going to survive encounters with better gunned, better equipped ships. And, you know, in my head, I'm like, part of me is going, I really want to come up with some edge that ship has. Maybe it has an ancient cloaking device that the current enemy is unaware of or doesn't have equipment to deal with. And like, no, I'm not going to give it an edge. I'm going to make it barely functional. Any edge it's going to have is going to come from the players, the characters that get on board it and work to get them home. Why this works best in the victory system for me. One, the victory system works very well with improvising tactics and action in the moment. It's meant to be very cinematic and have that sword fight and kung fu kind of pacing, but that works really well for your space games and your space battles because you've got a lot of freedom to think laterally. It's also got the equipment system, especially where it pertains to vehicles and starships, is designed around what if you want to build, repair, maintain, or modify your own vessel. What if you want to bump up this factor of it or add this piece of equipment? What do you get? What does it take? What does the player have to do on paper to make it work? What does a character have to do in the game space to make it work? And what do you roll? How does that happen? How long does it take? What does it cost? Those are all answers that the victory system just gives you. You don't have to sit back and try and think of what that might be. You've got that. So you're free to imagine the characters at the nano lathe or maybe having to get something really hot and hammer it into shape. I might actually have to blacksmith some of this stuff before they get the workshops up and running. And the ability to do that and imagine the story aspect of it, because the system is taking the heavy lifting and working on the numbers off your shoulders. That's why I wrote it that way, and that's probably why it flows so well with this concept. So I like the idea that the desperate submarine style battles where they were trying to avoid sensors or get behind cover, find pathways that give them the best advantage, maybe eventually boarding a better ship and taking it, or maybe just continuing to find bits and pieces of material and technology and bolting it onto the ship that they find until they're at least evenly matched. I don't know how they'd want to do it. That is up to them once they're on board. Once the action is going, I can think of a dozen ways I'd like to act in that scenario if I'm on board that ship, and that doesn't really count as preparation because all the things I can think of are nothing compared to what a group of people can think of, whether I'm part of it or not. So yeah, that's kind of the core concept, which means to prep for something like this. Flesh out the environment, the political environment that they're in, where they're from, what they're doing, who they're fighting, and what the people that they're fighting have to bring to bear, like using the Trosians. Because I've been working with them, and this gives me a chance to flesh the Trosian Empire out in my head a little bit. That's coming a bit at a time. I got books that I'm writing, but they're slow to form. Probably stretched too thin right now creatively. So it's taking a while to put all the notes together, as it were. So coming up with someone that could engage the Trosian Empire in a prolonged conflict, hopefully using an entirely different aesthetic. Maybe it's not a humanocentric government. Maybe you might be human involved. I like having a kind of a dark federation thing where it's this conglomeration of races, not all of them conglomerated by their own free will, but assimilated, as it were. Not strictly Borg-like, but more politically assimilated. Have ships with more points and crags, kind of that Captain Nemo 50,000 Leagues Beyond Beneath the Sea kind of aesthetic. Lots of flanges and points and curves, blades. Yeah, something like that. Steampunk Klingons, something in that area. And having fleshed that out and done a rough map of the area that the game is going to take place in, they're going to be big because there's not going to be anything like a box to keep the players in. But they're going to think outside of it anyway, so I might as well make a nice big area. I come up with a way to do big random star charts. and then populate them. And then once I've got that, it's the ship design. And the ship design takes like 3 different phases. One, I got to imagine what the enemy needs a whole bunch of different kinds of ships. I've got some sample ships in the Victory Spaceship book, and I can reskin some of those. I'll probably make some other varieties of ships. I need to know what they look like. I need to know what their function is. Are they a destroyer or a battle cruiser? Make some fighters. They'll have to have some carriers then if it's got the fighter complements. And putting numbers on them is probably the easiest thing to do. Again, that's why Victory is written the way that it is. So you can just keep adding things until you've got the ship that you're looking for. I get to write a new Excel sheet. It's been a while since I've written a new Excel sheet. I get excited about doing Excel sheets for stuff like this. So design the enemy politically, design the space they're going to be fighting in, do the spaceships. Spaceships going to take a little bit, so that they can start to recognize different enemy ships as they come up, or have that class recognition. No, it's if you're in a Star Trek world and you're fighting the Romulans and there's a Dideridex out there, you kind of know what it looks like, what it is. You kind of got a sense of its scale and feel. And yeah, that's I kind of want to have that brand name recognition for the enemy vessels. And then it's the NPCs who's going to be piloting those vessels. What's the enemy rear admiral who's going to be obsessed with finding whatever the MacGuffin is that the player characters have, and preventing that from getting back to the Empire. Who's going to just draw more and more resources from from their government to track down these people and that important thing that they can't afford getting out of their realm of influence. And that admiral's lieutenants, the various captains of the ships that they're going to be fighting against, maybe some enemy intelligence operatives, and 1 or 2 that might be double agents or could be convinced to come over to the player character's side. Maybe they have a battle early on with some ship and decide to, and for whatever reason, the captain of that ship forms some respect for these lucky Trojans in their antiquated ship, and might show up later on to even some odds if things get too terrible. You claim that these people have no honor. I know this not to be true. Now stand down, for now you face 2 sets of guns. Set up for lines like that down the line, whether they happen or not, it put in the possibility that they'll happen. Different planets. I'll know what the space looks like. I need to have some idea of the planets, because they're going to need to touch down and resupply and get food and air until they get the systems on their ship fixed or put in place that can provide them with that. I like having replicators in my space games. I like starting with them broken. Because then they got to go down to these planets and deal with these people. And now it's not just this giant spatial empire that's trying to kill them. Now there are faces and voices involved, and maybe they make some friends on those planets. Maybe make some enemies out of the local governments, and those folks can level up and show up in the invading and pursuing armada. Oh yeah. So you got away teams and planetary action. You got plenty of opportunities for personal action. So you got the spaceship to spaceship combat, and you got the person to person combat, and the larger tactical view. Yeah, a little bit of everything that I like to have in a space game. So you can involve yourself in some commerce. Maybe you're going to earn us some credits by moving some stuff from place to place, or maybe you're going to take a couple of contracts out on stuff just to have what you need to get the stuff to survive with. Can't have that MacGuffin be too time sensitive. Little time sensitive. You need there to be a number of impetus to get out of the situation, to make it, the destination's over there. And you got to make it through a whole bunch of opposition to get there. But you got some time to do it survivably. I could cut down on the amount of stuff that their ship has initially, or I cut down the amount of time that they have to get out. I don't want to do both of those. And since I really want to focus on them starting with a ship that is less than bare bones and really needs a lot of tender love and care, and can deal with a lot of upgrades, or can help them get to a situation where they can get a better ship. Maybe have two, maybe transfer the AI. I don't know how they're going to handle it. But give them a lot of options, but start them off ground floor bare bones. The victory system, if it has any problems, and it does, and then no system is perfect, victory's problem is power creep. It is way too easy to get way too powerful way too quickly. If you are following the standard progression, so I might cut the progression down a little bit so you don't have some of that power creep. Aside from that, if you build a starting character well, they can do tremendous things with technology, and I don't think I want to limit that. I really don't think I want to limit that, because a character with the right merits can do things much, much faster, can work 10 times faster or better than that. Than someone who doesn't have, it's called the natural engineer merit, and it makes doing things with technology much, much faster. It makes your fabrication, your construction, and your repair go way faster, which includes modifying and maintaining vehicles. But on a large enough vehicle, even that is a pain in the tuchus. For one person has a very hard time maintaining an entire spaceship all on their own. So, yeah, even with the natural engineer feat. So, yeah, that works much better, actually. So, no problems having that sit in the game and seeing what happens. Yeah, this is going to be a blast. There's going to be a lot of pew-pew gun shooting space fights, rockets, missiles, blasters, all kinds of stuff. If there's one sword fight in the entire thing, that's amazing. Laser swords and people who can use them properly, have your budget Jedis in there. Maybe go back to Star Crash, as I often do, and see if I can't stat up some kind of institution like Pathfinders. But before Starfinder, before Mass Effect Andromeda, Star Crash had Acton the Pathfinder, a navigator with a budget lightsaber who could pull strange new combat abilities out of his butt at need, and could not have been played by Marjo Gortner. If you haven't heard the name, don't be surprised. He was in like 3 or 4 movies ever, and before that was a fairly successful televangelist. Go figure. But Star Crash wouldn't have been the iconic movie, the iconic bad space movie that it is without him. Sorry, tangent. Yeah. So, and I've been thinking of it as my up Periscope or down Periscope campaign, but not really applicable because I doubt any of the spaceships are actually going to have periscopes. Not mechanical periscopes, maybe gravity periscopes of some kind. I have no idea what I'm going to call this campaign. At the moment, it's the down periscope space campaign. If I think it's something better, I'll let you know. Yeah. When is this campaign going to get run? Oh man, I have no idea. It's got for the Warriors of Wednesday alone, we've got to finish the Paladin campaign, which is going to be a while because it's working out very well. And then we've got some play testing to do for another one of the members' stuff. And then seeing what folks want. I've got a couple of nibbles on the Down Periscope thing, folks who might be interested. We need to have a movie night because not every member has seen the movie, and I kind of need that to be in the common parlance. So maybe 2023. Yeah, which gives me plenty of time. If I work on a spaceship a week for a while and take a little time out and make a spaceship happen, start stocking up the armada. Even if I don't end up using them all, I'll have all this stuff that I can use and that can get published. So no issues with that. Well, thank you for following me along on this particular ramble. I think I got my brain going in the direction it needs to go. And I appreciate you giving me the time to listen. If you liked the video, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't like the video, give me a thumbs down. Feedback is feedback. But here, more than ever, if you were to get involved in, say, a space game for a tabletop role-playing game, what would you want to do? What would you want to play? What would character aspects you like to see a character have? And what would you like them to have to deal with? What kind of opposition or situation would you like to find them in? I'm really interested in knowing. I'd like to dig into the genre and what folks are dealing with it in that genre these days. You hear a lot about Dungeons and Dragons, not so much about Traveler anymore. And I'd kind of like to know how people are interfacing with space and dice. Please leave me a comment below. Anything else you'd like to talk about? Things you'd like to hear me cover? Subjects you'd like to hear me talk about? Leave me a comment down below. I will love getting your comment, and you'll love leaving me one. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, why not? My channel is awesome. You might want to hit the subscribe button. If you do, probably want to hit the notification bell so you're alerted when my videos become available. If you would like to contribute to the channel in a more substantial manner, I invite you to hit me up my Patreon page, www.patreon.com/ScottCorum. Consider donating. Absolutely anything helps. Allows me to make better videos more often. In the meantime, thank you very much for watching. I'm Scott Quorum. This is What Has Mattered to Me. I will see you next time on the next Matters of DeCorum.